Hello everybody, I'm Erin or punkydumplin, whatever you want to call me. Welcome to my face. So because my last video had to do with me talking about references and why I think they're important and that there are steps for references that need to be used, I figured I could show you guys the way I use reference based on a photo of my own. And hopefully you guys get some good information on how I do things. I definitely don't want to say that the way I do it is 100% correct, but I figured it would be a good jumping off point for those of you who want to learn the way I do it. So hopefully this is informative for you. All right, I've taken a photo that was taken of me when I think I was 21 when this picture got taken. But I figured in order to keep any kind of issues with copyright down, I would use a photo that was taken of me. Let's get started with this. The first thing I do when I am looking at a reference is I want to put in the building blocks. What I'll do is I'll start by putting in where the hip line is, where the shoulder line is, where I think the knees are versus where the feet are, and stuff like that. I want to get a basic feel for this, and because this is me at a heavier weight, we have to do a little bit of extra, but getting the basic building blocks for where we want this to go. And then the main thing I do is I want to know where the rib cage is at. And because I'm drawing this on a heavier body, the rib cage is actually going to be smaller. The fat builds around it. There's not as much fat that is inside the rib cage. Then, you put in about where the head is, where the neck is, and stuff like that. And you want to do a basic build. That is basically the shape that we're trying for this particular piece. And if you turn the thing off, this is about what we're going for, right? And then I can lower it down and we can start with the basics over here. Just so you know, I like everything kind of tilted because I'm special like that. Now I'm going to draw it a little bit bigger over on this side. And for this piece, the hips are just very slightly tilted. So, there's actually less involved in them. And then we want the rib cage and the direction of the rib cage, because that's actually really important for like putting in things like breasts and stuff like that. That helps with that. I like to draw in the joints. So this arm is a little bit this way. There's the hand, because the hands are moving forward a bit. And as you see, this looks a little bit longer on this side than it does on this side because this arm is reaching forward. But then we've got the basic shapes in, right? And this is where you start trying to mask out the more filled out shapes. For me, I start in the torso because at least for this picture in particular, it's going to be a lot easier to get everything else dialed down once you have the torso. There's a little bit of, that goes a little higher. And the cool thing is you can make mistakes, erase, undo, do all the things, because that's part of learning, at least with this particular portion. Just so you know, generally with bigger bodies, the belly will roll over the hip line, so you actually won't see the inside of the hip line. And depending on the person's body type and weight, there will be some extra pudge behind the knee. I know there is for me. That way we've got the basics of, the torso and the legs, and now we can move into the arms. And the arms are a little bit thicker, so we want them to move a little bit like this, and we want this arm does a twist, so we want to show that. It's okay to make mistakes, because that's what I do. We want to do the little bit of arm flab right there, this arm kind of comes down a little bit so the shoulders dropped, and then the fingers are going to come out. The fingers are facing outward, so we want them kind of like that. And then for this one, we want the thumb to come straight down and the rest of the fingers are going to come down this way. And then we're going to do a little bit of buildup on the head because I drew the head a little bit small. Generally, you want to draw heads on people who are a little bit chubbier, smaller anyway, because that's generally how it works. I just have a massive head. We've got the basics of the shape of the body now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to start working on detail work for the new layer. This is where we start going into like the head and stuff like that. The shape of the head is going, there's a little bit of chub right there. Want the nose over here a little bit because my nose is really high up, and then my lips are down here a little bit. And then my eyes are about in this spot here. And then we want to throw in a basic hairline along with where we want the ear to be. And then we pull this down into this shape. And this is where we're going to start really paying attention to the shapes in the actual photo to try and match them, or at least get the essence of them that we want. We see how this arm, or how this shoulder here, there's a little bit of pudge here, and then we go into the shoulder line. So we want that little bit of pudge before we go into the shoulder area. There's a little bit of muscle in here. And then we want the bust line, which is going to be centered in about here. This breast is a little bit harder to see, so we're gonna calm down for a second on that one. Calm down, Turbo. So now we're going to do the sides. And again, like now I'm also going to be adding in the dress. So there's a little bit of hunk right there. And then there's a big dip right here. And then we go into where the hip is. And then we move into the dress form. It's okay if you don't get it 100% correct. What you're looking for in this is the feel with the piece. We've got a little bit longer here. We want to flow just a little bit because we want this bottom part of the dress to hit right about here. We want this to kind of flow inward. And then we're going to erase this part right here. Zoom out just a little bit so that you guys can see a little bit better. And we're gonna start putting in the actual bust line, which, if you can see, it goes all the way to the end here. We want to go from the end, and we want to go all the way up this way. And you also want to add in some folds for that, because that's also, this boob is a little bit underneath the line of the bust, so you want to capture that in the piece. And then we've got these weird crossy doohickeys. There we go. And then we go in straight line to here. And that's why there's a little bit of a fold right there. I'm gonna work on this arm. And because there's hair here, we'll get to the hair. We'll get to the hair. We want to make sure that we've got this shape down here, and we want this kind of shadow line to be in the sketch shape. We're gonna move this out just a little bit more. And then we're going to pull in this hand. Get the little pinky. This finger kind of sits straight. This finger follows it just a little bit. This finger follows just a little bit more, but this pinky's just kind of hanging out all by himself. And then we're going to do a quick shape in for the thumb. Right now we're just doing basic shapes and using reference in that sense. We've got a basic shape for the arm, and we also want to add in this weird little doohickey thing that I've got going on here. It bows out and then flops inward like so. What you're looking for is the basic shapes and where they fall. So like you can see this right here hits right around the bottom of the pelvis, so you want it to hit around the same area in the drawing that you're doing. Then we're going to move over here, and we want this arm to be raised up a little bit. We've got to see just a little bit of underneath this arm here, and then we're going to go into these fingers. And this one's going to be the hard part. What the hell was I doing with my hands? This thumb, we're going to have it sit out here. This finger, there's a fold right here, and then we're going to pull this finger down just a teeny bit. You don't need this to be exact. You just need it to be close. Learning how to, use the references as you go through them, it takes time, but it's also incredibly worthwhile once you get the chance. This little ringly thing that I've got going on. And then we want these down. And this is going to fall about right here. So we want it to fall to about here. But we also want it to curve appropriately. And this is where paying attention to what the shapes are doing, especially in cloth, because cloth is a pain in the biscuits. So if you can learn how to do the cloth appropriately, you are going to be in business. About half of the references I do are for cloth. Then we've got that part done, right? And then we're going to go in here and we're going to start with blocking in the hair. Most of my hair here is kind of pushing in. And we've got just a little bit on the outside, and then we've got this little swoopy bit right here. I'm gonna do just a little bit of my bangs right here. And now I've got the basics of the pose that I'm doing in the references. I'm gonna hide this layer. And we're going to drop down this. And now we're gonna get to do some detail work. And just so you know, I also have my reference up on my screen right above me so that I can also look at it now that we're getting into detail work. And we're going to come in here and work on shapes of the face. And I've got a pretty, I guess, unique nose because it does some weird floofy shit. And this nostril comes out. I have droopy eyes, or slow eyes is what my mother always called it, S-L-O-E. She told my sister that, and my sister thought that meant you could tell that we're not all the way there, and I'm like, no, that just means our eyes droop. There's some eyebrows, and I'm looking in this direction, except for this eye is not. This eye is not, because I don't look the right way for things. We've got some eyeballs. We want to draw the glasses on here, and this is where knowing where the nose shape is. I think I've gotten better at choosing glasses, I hope. Something I have to pay attention for myself. I have like no lips. I have to be very careful about giving myself too much lip. I also have a very distinct Cupid's bow. That's something you want to pay attention to, like especially when it comes to facial anatomy. A lot of people's faces are different, and then like right now the face that I'm drawing of myself was of me a lot heavier and a lot younger. There's a few less wrinkles. I've got these cheekbones that could cut glass even when I was chubby. And then my chin is up here. There we go. We've got basics of my face shape. And then you can see a little bit of the definition of my jaw from under my ear. My ear. We're gonna do a quick and dirty ear here. Quick and dirty ear. This area is actually pretty much a straight line down. And this is where you can start kind of goofing off with the hair. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when it comes to like hair and stuff, I kind of goof around a lot with it. You can make the hair wispy, or you can make it full and thick. I have pretty fine hair, so my hair usually looks wispy no matter what I do. I'm trying to add some of that into this, while also adding in my hairline. We're gonna go in. We're actually going to move this back a little bit. Pull through and add in some shadow back here so that there's actually some form to it. This is where this hair wispy gets all out of place, so we're going to throw this in like this. And one other thing I will say, specifically at least for me in digital, one of the main things I have to pay attention to when I'm doing digital drawing is I have to draw these lines quick. I have to do it quick or they look silly. And I know that there are line stabilizers. I don't use them because reasons. Some of those things where it's like, oh yes, this is a silly thing that's really unrealistic and you can't be perfect. But I still subscribe to the fact that I should be perfection personified. There's that shadow right here underneath. This nostril needs to come out just a little bit more. And this nostril needs more filler. And then it comes out like this. It almost looks like me. And then we got some hair doodads that just kind of do whatever the hell they please, because that's what my hair does. I'm sure you guys can see wispies already. It's even better now because they're gray, so they do not stay down for the life of me. As you see, we're starting to get somewhere with this, I think. We're actually going to pull this out just a little bit further this way. We want to make sure that we're getting in appropriate shadow for it. And there's a shadow right here, so we want the shadow to be in. Hopefully this doesn't take like 17 years so you guys can actually see what it is I'm doing. And hopefully me explaining what I'm doing helps. Because I'm doing this off the cuff right now, so I'm kind of scared that I'm messing this all up. Because I'm really good at messing stuff up. But it's okay. We all make mistakes. And that's the cool thing about art is all about making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. And the one thing, I can't remember where I heard it. It wasn't in college, but it was definitely very good advice for me, which was fail faster. Get to the failing already, because the faster you fail, the faster you succeed. The thing about failing is you need to learn what it is you were doing wrong. And like right here, we wanted to change a little bit of the shape, and we want to put in a little bit of shadow right here to show that this breast has some weight to it. And then we're going in this way. And this one is still fairly, but there's a glittery line thing here. We're gonna put in the seam. We're gonna do this. Because again, the seam is actually partially over the bust, which is why it's kind of hard to see the bust on this side. But that's okay. We want some lines there to show that form. We want some lines here to show that this fabric is stretching over the bust. This isn't going to be like an exact replica of what I'm drawing, but it's going to be a good reference point for, you know, if I were to use this piece for another drawing of a different character. What I'm using this for is more of a study than an actual, like, piece. But learning how to do studies like this is definitely, I would say, instrumental in getting good at the arts. Most of this hair just kind of comes down this way and it does this little floofy floof. And then there's a couple of strands that kind of fall behind. Shadow right there, and then this area kind of bows out. There's a highlight in this area. Now, time to work on a hand. So again, since we already have the basic shape of the hands, I'm looking at my hand reference, and we're going to build in the shape of the thumb. And at least for my thumbs, I have a straight thumb, I don't have a hitchhiker's thumb, and I draw myself a lot. We've got this finger and we want to segment out this finger a little bit to try and get the perspective to work right. There's a little bit of a Y right here, and then we're getting into the next finger. And we're going to segment out this finger. A little bit of a bump here, and we want like this. And this fingernail is going to kind of do this little thing right here. Push it in. This finger is kind of pulling away from it. And we're going to segment out this guy as well. As you can see, as the finger starts bowing away, we start lengthening certain parts of the finger. And this pinky finger, which is just kind of hanging out doing his own thing, not even doing what everybody else is doing. I've got a pretty defined bump here for my wrist bone. There's a little bit of a line right there. So now you see we've got a decent enough hand. And then we're going to continue down here into this part. And some of these things, especially when you're doing studies, you don't have to get it exact. Getting the basics of the form, making sure that you're paying attention to the way that the form curves and the way that, say, like these little strips curve against the body actually really helps quite a bit in making sure that you are drawing it correctly. And we're gonna throw that like that. We're gonna erase right here. A little bit of a bump right there, and there's a little bit of a lip from the cloth. Now we're going to move over this way. You see there's a little bit of a line right here, so we want to do kind of a little bit of a form line to show that there's more form here. Here, there's a little bit of a wrinkle in the fabric. We're going to erase this a little bit right here and move it down a little bit. And this is why I do multiple passes before I do the final pass over for the drawing. That way I can move things around and make them make sense as they show up. There's a few extra folds over here, so we want to make sure to get them in. And we also want to make sure that we get the folds right here to show that there is form here. And it's not just the her. And now we're going to do this hand. This hand's going to be a little bit easier because it is not in perspective. So we're just going to throw this thumb in and section it out. And just remember, there's only 2 sections to a thumb and 3 sections to the rest of your fingers. And there's a little bit of pudge right there because I've got chubby fingers. And then we're going to section out this finger and then the finger next to it, and then this finger kind of skews a little bit, and then again this pinky over here just kind of doing whatever he wants. So then we've got this hand pretty much done. This side, it's a little bit blurry. We got to kind of make up some details, and this is kind of where, at least for me, the fun but not fun part of this is. We're going to throw this way. We're gonna just kind of make some fold details, make it look like there's consistency in it. And then we are going to finish out this side. And this one, throw it this way. There we go. This line goes here, and it kind of twists. And there's a little bit of a fold right here. Kind of go in. Fold, fold again. And when you're working on sheer fabric, this is a pain in the biscuits, but it's okay. We want to have this sheer fabric look like it's folding in. Go in like this. And now to finish off the little details in this skirt. And for this skirt, there's a little thing right here, and then we pull in, go, and then this pulls out a little bit more. And then this, like, even though you see it fold in, you can actually see where it folds out. And then we're going to put in just a few defining shapes and shadows to show that this is cloth. You can tell that right here is where the seam is, so there's going to be some stuff right there, right here, and then right here where you can see that the shadow of this has, and then we want to throw this up and over. Then we want to do just a little bit of shadow right here. And then we want to put in this breast, and we want to put in some shadow here. I'm going to do some basic shapes for the necklaces because, as I said, since this is just a study, we don't have to worry too much about details in the necklace and stuff like that. There is a quick and dirty study that I have done for you guys. Hopefully this has helped. If it has, I guess like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. If you guys want to see me do art live, I stream on Twitch. I'm live at Thursdays through Sundays between 8:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for the most part. I am also, if you want to see any of my finished artwork, I am on Instagram. If you want to see my inane thoughts and all the crap I retweet, you can go to Twitter. But that's it for me tonight. Thank you so much, you guys, for paying attention to me rambling on. Love your faces, and I'll talk to you next time.